Welcome to the Flora podcast, a place where we help you create a life you're excited about. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are going to talk about the quickest way to identify your clutter. If you're new to my channel, I'm Flora, and for over 25 years, I've been helping people like you align into a life or a business that you are wildly obsessed with by helping you clear the 9 types of clutter keeping you from a life that you love. What are those 9 types of clutter? They are mental clutter, spiritual, emotional, digital, financial, daily, body, process, and environmental clutter. Today, I'm going to share with you the number 1 way to clear overwhelm from your life. Are you ready for it? All right. I share this exercise in my book, The 1 Degree Shift. The link is in the show notes. The first thing is to get out a piece of paper or several pieces of paper and do what I like to call a brain dump. I did not invent this. I learned this like 20 some years ago. And doing a brain dump helps you to just get everything out of your head. So what do you write in the brain dump? You write all of your to-dos. These are all the things that you know you need to do. The second thing is to write down all of those silent to-dos. Maybe you have a bathroom door that squeaks. You're like, oh, that effing door just pisses me off every time I open it. So I need to silicone spray the bathroom door because it squeaks. I need to dump the shredder. Those silent to-dos are the things as you're navigating through life. It's, oh yeah, I need to do this. Oh yeah, I need to do that. And you don't usually write these down, but they usually take up a lot of space in your brain. So write all those silent to-dos. The next thing is write down everything that you feel just kind of overwhelmed about. Maybe you're having trouble losing weight. Maybe you've got like 6 books that you want to read. Maybe you're in a book club and you feel behind and you're like, oh, write that down. Everything that you're feeling, thinking, just write it down. Anything that's heavy on your heart, anything that you keep thinking about, write it down. There's a reason why this is called a brain dump, because you literally dump everything that is in your brain that's occupying space, write it down. And then when you think you're done, ask yourself this question. What else? And then wait, and then write anything else that comes down. Then when you think you're done, again, repeat it. What else? What else? And keep asking yourself that question and keep writing stuff down until when you ask yourself what else, nothing else comes up. Okay? Now, once you've written everything down, I would encourage you to just take a beat, take a moment to just feel what it feels like to have it all out of your brain and all in front of you. Please do not feel overwhelmed by looking at this. This is not a to-do list, okay? This is just getting it out of your brain. The next step, so that's step 1, is to do that brain dump until you feel complete. The second step is to then look at that list and say, okay, out of all these things that I wrote down, what are the top 10 stressors that I'm feeling? So when I look at this, I get really stressed out. And just narrow it down to your top 10. And you can number them as you find them on your list. And if you want to, you can write them down on a different piece of paper. And then from that top 10, narrow it down to your top 3 stressors. And then from your top 3, narrow it down to the number 1 stressor. You might be surprised. I can guarantee you're probably going to be surprised about what your number 1 stressor is going to be. This is the thing. This is the type of clutter. This entire list is clutter, okay? Your entire list is clutter. And I can guarantee you're going to touch on almost every single one of those 9 types of clutter in this brain dump, okay? So, find your number 1 stressor. And you can ask yourself, okay, what type of clutter is this? Am I willing to deal with this right now? Am I willing to clear this piece of clutter? When I did this one time, and I actually share this in my book, I was feeling so overwhelmed. I was like, oh my God, So I grabbed out my legal pad and I just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. Finally, when I was done, I'm like, okay, and I narrowed it down. Do you know what my top stressor was? I was shocked. It was cat litter on the floor. So this was shortly after I moved to Wisconsin, like over 10 years ago. And we had our cat boxes in the lower level of my home. And I had 2 cats at the time. And every time they jumped out of their litter box, they were like, I swear to God, I swear to you, they were like flinging cat litter, like, you know, people throw beads at Mardi Gras. Like it was everywhere. And I was like, oh, and I swept so many times during the day. And every time I went down to that lower level, I was stepping on cat litter. And I was like, oh my gosh, why is it everywhere? And so when I realized that that was my number one piece of clutter, I was like, well, of course. So I was like, okay, am I willing to deal with this now? Yes. What are the options? How can I deal with getting rid of the cat litter on the floor? 1, get rid of the cats. Well, that was not an option because they were my boys' cats. Okay, 2, try to contain the litter somehow. Okay, so I decided I'm going to get a big, giant, oversized, textured rug that is easily vacuumable so that I can contain as much or most of the cat litter as possible. So I measured that area. I went to, I think, Home Depot or Lowe's, and I found this fabulous natural fiber rug, and it was meant for outdoors, which is good because then it's waterproof and I can hose it down if it got dirty or whatever. But it wasn't big enough, so I was like, screw it. I'm just going to get 2. I'm going to duct tape them together on the bottom so nobody sees. I did that. I washed and swept and cleaned the floor, and then I put them under the cat box, and it contained about 90% of the cat litter. And I was so excited. I was like, yes. So when I walked onto that lower level, I no longer stepped in cat litter. Granted, it wasn't like covered on the floor, but it was, sprinkled throughout before. Now it was barely any. It was so incredible. And then I was like, wow, this feels so good. What's the next thing on the list that's stressing me out? You want to know what that was? It was a squeaky bathroom door. So I was like, all right, went to the store, got some silicone spray, oiled the joints, or, silicone sprayed the joints. No more squeak. These are types of clutter that get you every time because it's that silent thing that just keeps poking at you. It just keeps poking at you. So this is why we look at the 9 types of clutter. This is why we categorize them, because sometimes people are like, I don't understand why this isn't working or why that's not working. All right, do the brain dump. What type of clutter is this? Is it process clutter? Is it digital clutter? Is it daily clutter? Is it body clutter? Like, what type of clutter is it? And sometimes people aren't ready to deal with that type of clutter, and that's okay. You got all the other types of clutter that you can deal with. But the key is to just recognize you're human. Every human being has clutter in some form or fashion, but not everyone is willing to deal with it. Not everyone is willing to take the time and say, what is bothering me? What is causing me to feel overwhelmed? And this brain dump is one of the simplest, easiest, quickest ways to identify. Another thing that this does is it clears out the ego. Often in my coaching sessions, when I have a new client, they'll come in and they'll say, this is what's wrong in my life. And they give me a big whatever it is. And I'm like, okay. And through a series of questions, I pull back the layers of clutter. And then what's really going on is something completely different. And that's what the brain dump helps you to do personally outside of a coaching session. It helps you to get rid of all of that mental clutter and to put it all down on paper. And then you look at it and go, oh, wow, I was not expecting that to be my number one source of stress right now. And that source of stress impacts everything else in your life. So, I would encourage you to get out a notebook, do a brain dump, and keep asking yourself, what else? What else? What else? Again, the silent to-do, the regular to-do, anything that makes you feel overwhelmed, all the things, put it all out on paper. Narrow it down to your top 10, and then to your number one top stressor. And then clear out that stressor, whatever that is. Sometimes this is as simple as cat litter on the floor, but other times it could be a toxic relationship. It could be a toxic job or career. It could be a health issue that you have. It could be a number of things. And ask yourself, am I ready to finally clear this clutter from my life? Am I ready to finally be done with this? If the answer is no, give yourself some grace. Go to the next thing on the list. What's your number 2 stressor? I would encourage you to clear out at least one stressor and notice how it feels to be in that space of completion. Notice how it feels when that clutter, whatever it was that you just cleared, what it feels like, and sit in completion. So many people just keep checking stuff off the list. They don't pause or stop enough to go, wow, I did that. Yay me. Yay me. You got to celebrate yourself because very few people will. Very few people will celebrate you. Okay? So you got to learn to celebrate yourself. You have to learn to celebrate yourself. And that's one of the things that this brain dump can help you do. It's to help you clear the mental clutter, get all of it down on paper, tackle that number 1 or that number 2, and help you to be in that space of completion. Because I'm telling you, when you complete something and you recognize that you completed something, that's a big deal. It's a big deal. In next week's podcast, I'm going to talk about what I learned after going through 25 years of planners and calendars. And the huge aha moments, like massive aha moments that I gleaned from reading, literally from 1998, planners and calendars from then. It was shocking. I was like, oh my gosh. And one of the things is feeling complete, giving myself permission to celebrate my wins, celebrate myself, celebrate what I accomplished. I did not do that enough. And when you start celebrating you and you start celebrating your accomplishments, whether it's celebrating that you made your damn bed. It's like, I made my bed today. Woohoo! I did something. I completed something. Or you just closed $1 million deal for your business, whatever that is. Or you got your oil changed, or you exercised, or you ate a fabulous meal. You ate for energy instead of convenience. Maybe you closed a big deal at your work. Maybe you were nice to someone who wasn't nice to you. Whatever that is, celebrate that you did something. Celebrate that feeling of completion. Okay? This is big. This is so big. So, if you want my help with this, if you write your list and you narrow it down to your top 10 and then your top 1, and you're like, gosh, I don't think I can do this on my own. That's what I'm here for. I am here to help you align into a life that you're wildly obsessed with, a life that you love, and a life that makes you so happy that people stop you and say, what are you doing? Why are you so happy? I get that all the time. And the key is to just keep clearing out the clutter. Keep clearing out the clutter. And we live in a very dynamic, fluid environment. So when you clear clutter, you don't live in a static environment. Clutter is constantly ebbing and flowing. So if you want my help with this, go ahead, click the link in the show notes that says Align Your Life or Align Your Business, whichever one you want to work with me on. Check it out. Both of these programs are now full and in application only mode. So fill out the application. We'll jump on a call. We'll see if you're a good fit. And then I will give you a expected enrollment date for when I may have an opening. Jump in there. Let's talk. There's no obligation, but really give yourself permission to just say, how much longer am I going to keep starting and stopping and starting and stopping and starting and stopping? Because that's just the thing that I hear all the time when people come to me is, I'm tired of starting again. I start, I get into a good habit, and then I stop. I start, and then I stop. I start. And that's because clutter keeps getting in the way. So let's clear that clutter for good. Yes, it does keep coming, but I teach you my methods so that you can recognize when clutter shows up in any of the 9 types of clutter, so that you can nip it in the bud so that it doesn't derail your progress. All right? This is big, and I love this for you. I'm so excited. So click the link in the show notes. I love you. I hope this serves you, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. All links mentioned are in today's show notes.